All right, folks, we shall get started. Thank you for coming tonight. My name is Zdrojewski, and I am the Director of Instructional Technology here in the district. I started about a year and a month ago, last July. And in my first year here, that's what this article you're seeing here is referencing, we did a small pilot test of what it would be like to have a one-to-one device program, which means essentially one computing device per child. So how many of you here have children that last year were in grades 5, 6, or 7? All right, so good, almost half of everybody here. So those students already know what it's like to have access throughout the day to a computing device. All right, this year we kick it up a notch. Now we go with grades 3 through 12, providing our students with the same device, a Dell touchscreen Chromebook. It's this size right here. I'll explain a little bit more about it tonight. But our middle and high school students have the opportunity now to bring them home. So it's a true one-to-one, meaning the student has access to the device even when they're not in a classroom. So we're going to go through all the different specs tonight, from the financial aspects to the curriculum pieces to where you charge it, all those things tonight. So I plan on talking for about 30-40 minutes here, going through a whole bunch of content. And then after that, we have question and answer time. So any questions you have, I invite you to save them to the end there, because if I ask you to have questions now, probably I'm going to cover a lot of it tonight. So we'll reserve the questions towards the end there. In the packets that you all received also, there's about 20 frequently asked questions in the back. So as I'm presenting tonight, feel free to take a look through those, because those are what we gathered from other districts as well that have been doing this. Things parents usually wonder right at the beginning of a program like this. All right, so to our first slide. Oh, and by the way, I am recording this session using some screencasting software. I did the same thing Monday night, so assuming both recordings work, we'll put them up on the website so you guys can watch the Monday night or the Wednesday night version. And we're doing that for the parents that aren't here, so they have a way to catch up on the things that were talked about. So that will be made available, and we'll communicate that out through our messaging system as well after the fact. So let's talk a little bit about the financial side. Where do we start with this? In order to purchase the Chromebooks, which cost $315 a piece, all right, sounds like a big number, but 100% of that $350 is fully paid for by New York State taxpayers. So the Smart Schools Bond Act, anybody familiar with that? Does that ring a bell? Maybe 2 years ago? In November of 2014, all the taxpayers in New York State voted on it, and it was voted yes. Essentially, it was to take out bonds in the amount of $2 billion for New York State schools. There's 700 districts total, to get a piece of that money. Our allotment of that $2 billion was $1.1 million. So that sounds like a pretty big number. But when you're buying hundreds of these, of course, that number goes down very much so. But the good news is we're not relying on local tax dollars only to make this possible. It would be hard for us to raise that much money in such a short amount of time. So we're leveraging the entire state, all the way across the state. All taxpayers are helping to fund this in all the schools, the 700 districts across the state. So we've put together our spending plan, which involves Chromebooks, it involves smartboard replacements, large displays for the classroom, and then document cameras, things like that are instructional technology tools to be purchased. And again, the good news is we buy these products, we submit the receipt to the state, and they give us that money right back. And then we can spend some more, they give us the money back. And we just keep going through that cycle, probably over a 2 to 3 year time frame, where now we have $1.1 million worth of equipment that was not directly paid just by Oakfield taxpayers. So it's a very good deal in terms of being able to fund technology purchases and kind of jumpstart us into the 21st century of teaching. So I had to come up with a plan that had to be submitted to the state and our Board of Education to approve it. And this was a key piece of it here. This is our rotations. We have a 3-year plan for each Chromebook. When the students issue the Chromebook, it's theirs for 3 years. And then if they are, let's say, a senior this year, of course they're not going to be here next year, that then translates down to another grade level. So that's why it's kind of like a cascading effect. Last year we purchased the green ones. This year we purchased the red ones. And then each year we have a set number we need to get based on enrollment. And I have it color-coded down there so that we can see as the years go on how we purchase things. All right, now so far I've said 100% of this is covered. But what happens when Smart Schools money dries up? All right, then no longer do we have a pot of money that we can use to keep this thing going. So we had to come up with a sustainability plan, which is how we're going to use all local tax dollars in the future. Maybe we're talking 3, 4, 5 years out when we no longer have the Smart Schools money to rely on. So for that, I have created a screencast video, gave it to the board members so they can see how it works. And basically, I'll get to the finish line here of that story. $27 per student per year because of state aid. When we spend $315 next year, we get back around 81% of that money back. So that really helps us in our district with the state aid ratio so that we're not fronting the cost for 100% of the product. We get the majority of it back the following year. So the bottom line is it comes down to be $27 per student per year. When the board saw that, they agreed that that's something we can continue to fund years down the road. So it makes jumping into this initiative much more palatable, being that we can sustain it for the long term. So after that, we then looked at what kind of computing device do we put in the hands of our students. There are tablets, smartphones, laptops, Android-based, Apple-based, Windows-based, lots of options out there. The reason why we settled on the Chromebook, and really a lot of this was done before I even took the job here at Oakfield. The tech committee looked at a lot of different computing devices. But the Chromebook itself, number one is its cost. It's not the typical cost of a Windows machine. If anybody's purchased a Windows laptop lately, typically $400, $500, $600 is what you pay for one of those. Chromebook, as I mentioned, $315. So it's half the cost, and maybe even less than half the cost, which is helpful when you're buying hundreds of these for a school district. The second one, and I think this is the most important, is fast. Now, I was a middle school technology teacher at Amherst Middle for the past 14 years, and I only taught with computers in the classroom since 2001. So I don't actually know what it's like to be in the classroom and not say, oh, just pull it up on Google, or send that document to me, because that's just the world that I lived in. The teachers that I've been working with are so impressed at how piles of paperwork, like I'm trying to grab my packets here, things that they go to the copy machine and get ready for the classes, this can be eliminated, because now all of their documents are simply stored online, and the kids can get to them digitally and be able to and print out a copy if they need a paper copy too, but at least they have access to their content then 24/7 by just bringing home that Chromebook instead of bringing home folders and binders and that type of thing. So it boots up within 10 seconds. You're not waiting for it to log in or apply updates or download antivirus. Upon opening a Chromebook, within 7 seconds, it's online. In fact, the lengthiest thing is typing in your password, the 8 characters the kids type in. But honestly, they do that so many times per day, it becomes second nature to just hit the keys right on the keyboard. So within 10 seconds, they're ready to go in the classroom. And that's important for schools, because we don't want to have students waiting or teachers waiting to get the content going. All right, multi-user accounts. Technically, any student in the district can log in on any Chromebook. Even though we're assigning these by serial numbers to each student, if someone for some reason didn't have theirs, they can take a friend's, log in as themselves, and now they have the same exact information as if they had their own Chromebook. So they're interchangeable in that way. That makes it really convenient for us, because then that means we're not worried about files being stored on a hard drive, that if you no longer have that, now you don't have your files. That's the old school way of computing. Now that everything is stored online, or as they say in the cloud, instead of on the device, it gives us that convenience and flexibility to be able to grab any Chromebook, log in with your credentials, and you have all of your content. Now the apps and extensions, those that had the Chromebooks last year, we toyed around both ways with this. At the beginning, we opened it up so the students could buy, I shouldn't say buy because it's free, they could download it and put any app on or any extension on that they wanted. All right? As you can imagine, we had some pretty crazy things. Not just productivity tools, but we had the Baconator app, where every time you open a new tab, it would show you the flavor of bacon of the day. Someone else had one that I heard a unicorn story. They'd open a new tab, and then another tab would open along with it and show you a random number of unicorns. All right, things like that exist because developers can make whatever they want, put it out there in the App Store, and we don't want something like that to become obviously a distraction in the classroom. So we're going to tighten the reins in the beginning of the year. The Chrome Web Store is closed for students, except for a curated collection of things that we would like them to have if they so choose to. But the teachers have the ability to push out apps to any student at any time as well. So if a student really needs an app and they can't do it themselves, they simply ask any teacher, and the teacher can install it on their behalf. So that's where we're going to start the year out. I envision that that's going to change because as students become more comfortable and more responsible with the laptops, we then can open up the web store and give them that freedom to look through the hundreds of thousands of apps and find just the right one to make that podcast, or to make that digital poster, or to work together on a photo editing project, or whatever the case may be. Today I'll be going through our filtering system so I can show you how we have control over that. We can see what things are being installed and then instantly block if need be with something called Go Guardian, so that's going to be part of today also. All right, so we're going to switch over here for a second to a video I'm going to show you. Okay, I got to set the stage here a little bit. It's a French TV commercial. I'm assuming, at least on Monday night, nobody saw this before, so I'm hoping this is the same case here. Don't have to worry, you don't have to speak French, because there's only one word spoken in this video. It's, as you can imagine, technology-based. That's why I'm showing it here. So let's take a look, and then I'll explain why I'm showing you this video after it's done.
Emma. Huh? Emma. 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 Emma.
All right, so the point of that is, paper is never going away. We're not eliminating paper from our society. We're also not eliminating human contact, because sometimes districts that are jumping into a one-to-one program, parents are concerned that, what are we doing? We're just going to have them sit in front of a computer all day and now they don't even talk to their teachers? But that couldn't be farther from the truth. Just like they're showing here, sometimes technology can be used to accomplish a task differently. But not all cases is that the best way to go. So it's a tool that the teachers and students can use when needed. It's not a everyday type of tool, it's not every period type of tool, but when it comes to being organized and productive, just like our students do both now and in the futures, that tool is there for them to use when needed. So I like kind of that lighthearted approach showing that there, where you have one person trying to push the technology, where then the rest of the family is slowly getting onto it. That's our year one right now. We're slowly getting into the world of one-to-one computing. It's new for everybody, so it's not something that's going to suddenly change the culture of what we're doing. It's a rollout, and most schools really don't realize the benefits until they get about 2.5 to 3 years in. And you really start seeing, wow, we're not printing paper anymore. These kids are working on projects Friday night because I put the assignment in thinking we were going to talk about it Monday morning. For me, that happened a lot. I had students that were excited to do homework on the weekend because it was like fun for them to do it before I introduced it to the class on Monday morning. So they were kind of like gamifying the system a bit. So it's an odd fact, students actually liking and wanting to do homework ahead of when it's even assigned. But I lived that for 14 years in Amherst Middle School, seeing how that can really be the case. Because these students nowadays growing up, first-hand technology, that's really the language that they speak. So the teachers are able to work with the students in a digital sense and in a face-to-face sense, both every day. We call that blended learning. All right, so I think I covered everything on my list here I wanted to. Good battery life, that's an important piece. By charging our Chromebooks, you get a full 8 to 10 hours of usage, and that's consistent, constant use with the brightest screen possible. So we have no problem getting through a full day. Now, it's a little different if you're elementary versus secondary. For the elementary students, their Chromebooks are going to stay primarily in the classroom. They're not going to go home each night. Some nights they might, and you'll see that listed in that go-home letter that I sent out. It's going to be up to the teacher if they decide to let the kids take them home, one night or many nights or over a holiday break or whatever the case is. So it's a sometimes thing going home for the students. Therefore, elementary students will leave the chargers in school. All right? Other side of that coin, our middle and high school students have to take their Chromebooks home each night because that's where the charger is. They charge them overnight. When you plug it in, it takes about an hour and a half to go from fully dead to fully full. All right, so within 1 to 2 hours, it's full all the way. So we usually recommend just plug it in when you go to bed at night, and definitely by the time you wake up in the morning, you'll have a fully charged Chromebook ready to go. So the chargers for our secondary students would stay at home. And the built-in antivirus, the great thing about a Chromebook is it's not a traditional platform like Windows or Mac OS. So there's nothing to infect. There's no files on the device. There's nothing installed on the device, so you can't infect it with a virus. And there's something actually called power wash. Within 3 minutes, I can wipe one of these remotely even too. I don't have to touch the device so that it's factory fresh again. So if someone's really having trouble and we can't pinpoint what the issue is, within 3 minutes we can do a power wash and now you're back to the start again. So those are types of things that you can do with a Chromebook that you traditionally can't do with Windows or Mac computers. So you might be wondering, what are the kids going to do? They're going to do typical things like check their Gmail, look at Google Calendar, hand in assignments digitally, type up essays, work on slideshows, create podcasts, edit photos and videos, all those kinds of productivity things. But in addition to that, I like showing this video because this really showcases 3 creativity tools that's going to change the game a bit. One of them has to do with podcasting, making audio shows and audio editing, making music. Another has to do with editing video. And a third has to do with making interactive whiteboard style videos where your voice is being recorded and you can move stuff around on a canvas and record it. So these 3 apps are featured in this little 2-minute clip here, so let's take a look.
Mully Road Middle School is a public school. We're located in Blythewood, South Carolina. Our school is one-to-one technology, and so every child carries a Chromebook. You can give them a little piece of technology, like, here's a new app, enjoy this, and they'll run with it.
All right, you should be logging into WeVideo. Today, I asked you to look at the flood documentary that you made. WeVideo is a communication platform where all types of media come together. They have to really think critically and decide, what are the pieces that my audience has to know?
Maybe we'll show the clip after we mention the survivors.
Okay. The best part is seeing them create something that they're really proud of and think, wow, I was capable of that and I didn't know it.
$1,000 to repair her cable.
So go ahead and get with your partner. I'll get your Chromebook passed out to you. Using Explain Everything, we'll go ahead and creating our topic of mean, median, and mode. Explain Everything is an interactive whiteboard app.
The number on the side represents the frequency. The numbers at the bottom represents the visitors.
It really took about 15 minutes to learn how to use it.
Okay, now we'll take the eraser and then erase this.
Explain Everything definitely helps my students animate their thinking.
So sit next to your partner for Human Body Project. We're working on Soundtrap to do our PSA, our public service announcement. Soundtrap is an app that students can use to capture audio and music and spoken word.
This is Rachel and Michelle on the Michelle and Rachel podcast.
They play it, they hear themselves, it's like, oh wait, that is not what I want to see. And so it gives them their own feedback. It also helps with cognitive thinking.
We were trying to capture a twig snapping. We didn't have a twig, so we just broke a pencil.
It makes the class more excitable, it makes it more interesting because it will be something that they look forward to hear all of it together.
Chromebooks. And the apps that we use allow students to level up in terms of creativity, collaboration, critical thinking. We teach the 21st century skills because we've got a 21st century learner.
All right. So I think that one really showcases the creativity piece. We don't want our students just consuming content. We want them to be actually making content. So they're not just taking stuff, but they're making stuff. And that's a phrase I've heard over and over again people say, but it's really true. If you can make something, that means you probably have learned it because you have an authentic audience and you don't want to embarrass yourself in front of that audience. So when you're talking about Pythagorean theorem, you're telling somebody why they should care about it, why it's actually important to know, not just the teacher said to do it. So having the students be able to make things in their own voices like that for not only just their teacher to see, but for the fellow students to see is quite powerful. All right, so moving on to the packet that I've given you. On the front page is this document here. All right, I've kind of alluded to the elementary versus middle high students' differences with Chromebooks. But when it comes time this beginning of the year to deploy them, elementary students are just going to find them in their classrooms. They've already been delivered to grades 3 through 6. In fact, I was over there today. I saw a lot of teachers have them set up already and all plugged in and ready to go. So we just need the last page of that packet, the signature page, turned into that classroom teacher. If you want to turn it in tonight, you can. I can just keep the pile going right up here. But feel free to take it home, look through it, and then you'll initial and sign the last page so that the student can start using the Chromebook the first week of school. So that's for elementary. The other side of that is our middle and high school students. They have the ability to pick up their Chromebooks the week before school starts. So that would be the last day of this month, which is Wednesday, August 31st, September 1st, or September 2nd. So right before Labor Day weekend there is the Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We'll have tables set up in the hallway. Students come in with their signed permission form that on the back of the sheet there that you have, and then we issue them their Chromebook. They're all serial number tagged for both the Chromebook itself and the AC adapter. So we expect to get the same ones back at the end of the year in June. But the students will keep them with them from September all the way through June. All right. Occasionally we might need to check one for inventory purposes, but for the most part, they have them for the entire school year. So we have to make sure that they turn in the same charger and the same Chromebook at the end. If someone does not come to pick it up, a middle or high school student, that's okay. We will then find them the first week of school through their homeroom. We'll bring it to their homeroom. We'll give it to them as long as they have the parent sheet signed, so that when we get to week 2 of school, now all the teachers can be told, you may begin teaching your lessons with a one-to-one scenario. The first week is us hunting down students, catching paperwork, making sure everybody has the right charger and the right Chromebook. But by the time we get to week 2, we should be ready to go. So if you want to turn in that paperwork tonight, you can, or you can turn it in closer to when the Chromebooks are actually received. All right. And the orientations, we got them covered here. So now we get to move on to the optional piece. All right, the optional Chromebook insurance. We really toyed around with this one back and forth. Should we offer it? Should we mandate it? Should we not even bother with it? All right, because all the other districts in our region, in the GV-BOCES area, there's 22 districts. And also, I'm from the Erie County area, so I communicate with the Erie and Agri County schools. I've heard it done many different ways. The most aggressive way is a school district says to the parents, we're going to provide you with a Chromebook, but we need you to give us some money up front to protect against accidents. And usually that's like $40 or $50. And then they say, if you return it at the end of the year with no repairs needed, we'll give you that money right back. So in that sense, they're self-funding. They're doing their own insurance plan. But that means the school district is collecting checks and money and cash and credit cards, and that's not a business that I want to get into. So we looked at a way to have a company that specializes in this partner with us, and that company is called Safeware. They've been around since the 1980s doing exactly this, working with school districts on expensive items, technology, electronic items, and insuring them. So it's the family that pays the premium, and then the school district receives the policy. And that's a way for us to offer optional insurance, not required, where you have the option of doing it or not doing it. So I want to give you both sides of that coin so you're familiar with what that means. Probably number one question is how much? And the answer is $29.51. That's if one parent does it or all 600 families do it. It's the same price. It doesn't change. So the $29 fee covers the entire school year. That's a zero deductible plan, meaning if we had to make a claim on it for a repair or a loss or a breakage, there's no out-of-pocket money at that point. Zero deductible, you're not charged additional money upon needing a claim. It's also an unlimited claim. I asked that too. I said, what if we have a clumsy student that keeps dropping their Chromebook and it keeps cracking? They said it's technically an unlimited policy. We don't advertise that because we don't want people to try to break their devices, but they will, if the student keeps breaking it, they will keep repairing it. Every time you put in a claim, they don't change your rate or require you to pay additional money. So really what that means is, for the parent, peace of mind is, if you can pay the $29 in the beginning of the year, you don't have to worry about any breakage fees or anything else in terms of losing it, theft, some of the things listed in that list there. All right? But again, it's optional. I've had parents tell me, I'm not looking to pay money out of my pocket. I trust my child. I feel like things will be okay. If we have to pay for a cracked screen, then so be it. But chances are, and I can give you some numbers on that. Last year we had 300 Chromebooks out there. I had one cracked screen from one elementary student. And that's 1 out of 300. I sent back to Dell about 12 of them, but that was for a manufacturer's defect. The battery wasn't holding a charge, and Dell knew about that. They repaired it within 2 weeks. They shipped me a box, I shipped it back, and it was a 2-week turnaround time, and we had those taken care of. So I can't say that you won't have to worry about a cracked screen, because that is the #1 problem with Chromebooks in schools. But as long as the student is careful not to put pens or pencils inside the keyboard area when they close the lid, that's usually how forced breakages happen. Dropping these things, they are military-grade specs. They are allowed to be, I don't want to do it now, of course, but they can take a fall from a couple of feet, these ruggedized cases. And we have an optional $20 case we're giving everybody as well, which I'll show you a slide on that too. It has silicone edges on it, so it makes it very grippy. It's less likely to slip out of your hands. And not only does it protect, but we want it to so students can personalize. You see how I put all these little logos and stickers on it and stuff? We want the student to do that, so at a glance, when there's a bunch sitting on the table, they can look at it, and without having to look at the name tag, because there's a name tag on it, they can look, oh yeah, that's mine, I have that sticker on it, or that bumper sticker. So school appropriate, of course, we have to keep reminding students of that, but they can personalize their case that way, and if it does fall, it's likely to crack the plastic outer shell case, which is replaceable for $20, and it's compared to breaking the actual Chromebook itself. All right, so the fine print at the, let me not skip over this here. The dates. Because the insurance company needs a window of time to collect all the policy premiums from all the people that opt into it, they have a 2-week window that's open from August 31st, that's the day we start distributing Chromebooks, through the first 2 weeks of school, through September 16th. So in that time frame, if you wanted to purchase it, you would go to their website, which is my.safeware.com, and in green there is the user ID and password, and then you would put in the serial number. That's how that's registered to your child. We, the district, know the serial number, and now the company, the insurance company, knows the serial number. So that's how it stays accurate. And that way you are able to purchase with a credit card, I believe is I don't know if they take checks, I think it's just credit cards, to be able to do the $29 fee for the school year, and that covers all of those categories. All right, so let me switch to this slide now and show you the difference if you decide to do it or not to do it. So I put it in a table so you can see the different pieces here. So if you decide to do the insurance, there is an upfront cost of $29. If you decide not to, you don't pay anything upfront. All right, deductible and claims. So the $0 deductible, unlimited claims, as I mentioned. Without insurance, we had to come up with Oakfield Board of Ed had to approve this, a repair fee structure. Because just like anything owned by the school, whether it's sporting equipment or a textbook or a calculator, if it's school-owned property and someone breaks it, the school has to hold the parent accountable to be fair to all the taxpayers that have purchased the item. So for that, we came up with a 3-tier structure. The first incident, no matter what it is, a major or a minor breakage, a repair fee would be $35. The second time, if there was a second time, would be $75. And hopefully we never get to the third time that repairs needed, because that would be full replacement of the laptop, which is $315. So it was set up that way to make it, not nickel and diming for a screen or a keyboard or different pieces. It's just a set fee in order for the student to receive back their original Chromebook. During a repair, if we determine that the student did it at accident, they didn't do it maliciously, we have loaners that we will loan out. It's an older Chromebook, a non-touchscreen model, but we have some of those around that we can use as loaner Chromebooks. I kind of compare it to like bowling shoes. Bowling shoes are something you don't want to wear out in public because they're just, not the prettiest looking things. Same thing with our loaner Chromebooks. It'll get the job done, but you don't want to live your school life with the loaner Chromebook because it doesn't have all the great nifty features that the ones we're giving the students have. So that's the difference between the deductible and claims. Manufacturer defects, I already mentioned, no charge on that. If it's something determined by Dell, such as a battery issue, they'll take care of that. Nobody has to pay a fee for that. Accidental damage, that means anything that happens by accident, such as spilling water on it and now it doesn't work, or dropping it and the screen cracks, that would be considered accidental damage. Our Dell Chromebooks were purchased with a 3-year parts and labor manufacturer's warranty, which means it doesn't cover everything that happens. It covers just the things that Dell would consider was a fault of their own manufacturing. So that's why batteries are covered. But if a screen cracks, you can usually tell it's because the Chromebook was dropped physically, and that's considered accidental damage. So accidental damage is not covered by the manufacturer. That's why the insurance offers the peace of mind that you wouldn't have to worry about repair fees if you paid up front for the insurance. Theft, burglary, and vandalism. All right, for example, left in a car. Someone breaks into the car, takes the Chromebook. If you have insurance, that is covered. The catch is the insurance company needs a police report filed within 5 days of the incident. So if something is stolen, we can, with insurance, the insurance company will give us $315 to purchase a new Chromebook. As long as we have that police report that's evidence that it truly was stolen, not just lost by a student accidentally. And that brings us to the last column there, lost or missing. If the student truly is at fault because they put it somewhere and they can't remember where it went, if we're unable to claim that as being stolen, burglary, vandalism, it truly would be a full replacement. Just like the student losing a football helmet supplied by the school. Same thing of any other school district-owned property. So that's kind of the side-by-side comparison about with and without insurance. This way we can give the parents the option. If you feel comfortable doing it or don't feel comfortable doing with it, you can go either way with it. These are some screenshots of what the portal looks like when you log into that website during those 2 weeks. You'll see a screen that looks like that, and there's a place for you to put in the serial number, which is right on the bottom of the Chromebook. Therefore, it is officially registered to your child because both the insurance company and the school district have the record of all the serial numbers. And those are the types of payment offers they have. Credit card, I don't believe you can pay by check because that's asked a lot by parents. It looks like it's just done by credit card. All right, so that's information about the insurance. And we can answer questions on that in a little bit when we get to our question and answer time. You know what, I did forget, because at this point I want to bring up the piece that blows people away. How much stuff we can actually tell about what people are doing on Chromebooks. I'm going to use our assistant principal as the guinea pig right now. We're going to look and see what kinds of extensions and apps did he put on his Chromebook. What kind of websites is he going to? What kind of Google Docs does he have? What kind of YouTube videos is he looking at? What kind of search terms are typed in the Google search bar? What location has his Chromebook been at? All these things are tracked by using a district-owned Chromebook. So if I go to the users area, and if we type in part of the last name, there it is. All right, so it starts with history. So the browser history is always logged, and you can see I can change this. It's only showing about the last week or so, but I can go back anytime that's needed, and we can see every single website that the Chromebook visited. This does not mean at school. This means anywhere in the world. Because the Chromebook itself, no matter where it's getting its Wi-Fi from, could be here at school, could be McDonald's, could be your house, could be a library, anywhere you go, it's always keeping track with an app that's installed on the Chromebook, the GoGuardian app. Students are unable to get rid of the app or disable the app because we've done some things such as disabled guest mode. You can't log in with a general account on this Chromebook. You have to log in with your OA Hornets account. That also means if you have a personal Gmail account, you can't use that to log on to the Chromebook. You're only required, you must always log in with a school district account. So that prevents someone from getting around the filter or not using the tracking capabilities that it has. It also has, speaking of tracking capabilities, it's been asked, couldn't someone just take this to a pawn shop and say, oh, I don't need this anymore, I want to sell it, what can I get for it? People know that that's not possible with a Chromebook because these are managed by the district. When they come in, we register them with our domain, our oahornets.org domain. That means if someone wipes it, also called power washing, upon rebooting it, it automatically goes back to where it belongs, or back into the domain. So that's how we know if someone were to lose it, we can find where it is on a map. I'll show you that in a moment here where it shows locations. So if at any time someone thinks that their Chromebook might be lost or stolen, or whatever the case is, let an administrator or a teacher know. Because as soon as we know, the sooner the better, we can mark it as potentially lost, and then it will start keylogging what it's typed in, what Wi-Fi address it's at, the GPS locations, all that data that helps us pinpoint on a map where it is. And honestly, it might be under the couch. Maybe the student left it in their house under the couch, and we'll tell you it's at 123 Main Street, and that might be your house. So 9 times out of 10, that's what the case is. It's not truly stolen or lost. But if it is, we have capabilities to locate where it is on a map. And just like Apple devices too, you can't really resell them, on the black market or at a pawn shop. There's no way to resell them because as soon as they're tied to an organization, it's a permanent connection. So that's the website history, nothing really impressive there. Top sites, this shows us where the person is spending their time. So our assistant principal is spending a lot of time at ed.gov, which is a good thing. That's a school-related site. And he's a big Google Docs user, and of course Gmail, so productivity tools. This graph would probably look a lot different if we looked at what a student could do, because they could go on educational gaming sites, they could go on video watching sites, they could go on all sorts of different sites that are out there that are not blacklisted by our filter. And this would show us where they're spending their time. So if we really needed to nail down to a specific user or a grade level of users or the whole district, we have that ability here to jump in and see what kinds of things people are spending their time on when they're using the device. So the Google tab gives me things like this. I can see the Google searches. Looks like he was looking up a phone number there, and here he was looking up some other keywords there. So it'll show us the words you actually type into a Google search bar to see what's surfacing there. Things have been red flagged in the past. Someone might be doing a history report and the word suicide may have been something they typed in. That will red flag it for us right away and let us know that there might be something worth looking at. So it kind of puts it at the top of our radar if something like that is being searched. But again, a lot of times it's innocent things. It's students doing reports on historical figures, and there's words that maybe are on the web page and that red flags it. So I'd rather be too safe than not safe enough. So we can adjust that filter setting. We have it set pretty strict right now as we're starting out the one-to-one, but it's always a work in progress. We can look at the Google Docs that the person has worked on. This is especially helpful for students. We can see if they're working on, which class. If the math teacher's sending out videos all the time, we can see if they're actually going on to those and seeing them. The general YouTube site, in the past couple days, it looks like he hasn't had his Chromebook on, so that's why nothing is showing up. But this would show us any YouTube videos that the person has watched, and then apps and extensions that they have installed. So this has happened this year. A student will say something like, help, I got a virus. Every time I open a tab, 20 other tabs open, and I can't do anything. Well, chances are the student installed an app or an extension that is malicious. It's not a good one. It's one that's not been vetted by Google. Nobody has really approved it, but maybe it had a cool name, so they downloaded it and tried it out. Well, I can instantly go in and hit the button that says blacklist, and now it's gone. So without even going to that student's classroom, we can hit blacklist, and now across the district, all Chromebooks no longer have that app working on it. So that's going to help us when we get to the point where we open up the web store and let students install whatever they want, to give them that freedom. It's freedom with training wheels, as I call it, because we have the ability to modify that if need be. And then if there's any flagged activity, it shows up here as well. And locations, if you change Wi-Fi locations, that's why, you gotta scroll down here. That's why there's 3 different locations here. Each time there, it looks like it was beginning of August, middle of July. So these are, a couple weeks in between sessions. That means the Chromebook has hit Wi-Fi somewhere geographically different than the last time it was on. So sometimes we see here going school, home, school, home, school, home, because it recognizes it's on a different Wi-Fi network, and it kind of sends a message back home to the server, letting us know where it has been located. So that's the location piece of it there. All right, so we'll come back to here. Here's a little bit about the case that I mentioned. The company's called Rugged Protection, and they make custom cases for hundreds of different laptops. So we've evaluated anywhere from the $9 cheap ones, which are just solid plastic, which I don't really think offer much protection, all the way up to the $50 models, which are called gumdrop cases, kind of like spongy rubberized material. And we settled for this one. With the quantity we ordered, we got them for about $20 a piece. And it is hard acrylic, 2 pieces that snap on, top and bottom. We're going to give the case to the student and let them put the case on for our middle and high school kids, so they can see how they can put it on and take it off. But once it's on, it's got to stay on. That's a requirement for all students, is you can't have any Chromebooks that are just there. They all have to be protected with a case. We give you the first case. If for some reason it breaks or falls off or something happens to it, it's up to the family then to replace that case. And they can choose whichever brand case they want. We just need to have some sort of protection on it so that it is protected in the event of a fall, and gives them the ability to add stickers and things on it to personalize it too. So it's kind of a 2-piece situation there. All right, so now for the big handbook that you all have. It's about 10 pages long or so. I wanted to give you one solid document that goes through piece by piece, a chronological sequence of events of what's going to happen beginning of the year, giving these Chromebooks out, how we will collect them at the end of the school year, the cost if any repairs are needed, General precautions about taking care of them. That's something we want students to make sure they're aware of all those bullet points there. And our teachers will go through these things first week of school with the students, so they're going to hear this over and over again about how to properly care for those Chromebooks. We do explain how we're storing them, how it's different between the two buildings, and charging each night. Saving to the Chromebook. Things are saved in the cloud, so we don't have to worry so much about flash drives or little SD cards like digital cameras use. You can use those if you want, because on the side of the Chromebook, there are 2 USB ports. There's an HDMI out, so you could hook this up to a big screen TV and use your Chromebook and see it on the big screen. And there's also an SD card slot. So if you have those little storage devices and you want to have pictures, photos, videos, slideshows, things like that, you have the ability to use physical media with it. But really, our students have found it's just easier to store everything in the cloud because we have free, unlimited storage thanks to what Google gives us. So you never have to worry about running out of space. It's hard to imagine that they've done that, but it is truly free, unlimited storage as of about 3 years ago when Google enabled that for our schools. So that takes us then to the bottom here where we have our frequently asked questions. If you haven't had a chance yet to look through the 20 or so questions, please do so now. And then we're going to have this question and answer time so everybody can ask anything that I didn't cover tonight. The last page is what we're looking at here. That's the page that's important. That's what has to get turned in by each student. So if you came in and only grabbed one packet and you have multiple students, see us in the back because we can give you additional packets there. But we want the student and the parent to just initial down in the 10 major points so they verify that they've gotten that information, and then the signatures at the bottom. Okay, I can collect that tonight if you want to turn it in tonight, or you can turn it in when you receive the Chromebook or the first week of school. So let's open it up now and see how many questions we have out there. I was surprised last Monday, I didn't get a whole lot of questions and I thought we would have more. So anything at all that you'd like to ask. So let's start right there. Oh, okay. So you're saying like at the end of the school year, instead of turning it in, an option to buy. We haven't explored that yet. Because we haven't reached that point yet. But that's something that's been talked about at Board of Ed meetings at the end of the school year, especially for people that are leaving. I don't know if that's a possibility, and I'm thinking it's not, because technically the Chromebooks are owned by New York State, not by the school district. So it wouldn't be up to us to offer them for sale and collect the money, because these are technically owned by the entire state of New York because of the Smart Schools Bond Act. But if the student would like to have one, especially if they're going on to college, $300 is really the top end. They're more likely $150, $200 or so for a brand new one. And I'm thinking after a year or two, they might have a little bit of wear and tear, so you might end up wanting to purchase a brand new fresh one for beyond 12th grade, if that's the case too. They make great Christmas gifts. Once I got my in-laws, one year we bought them an iPad, the next year we bought them a Chromebook. Guess which one they use the most now, 2-3 years later? Right, it's really the Chromebook, because it has the keyboard, it has the touchpad, it has the touch screen. iPads are great, they're 3 times the cost, and they do last a while, but Chromebooks, you just can't beat what you can do with them. It's like a traditional computer, but minus all the bad stuff. And I did mention this too, Chromebooks actually get faster over time. That's kind of weird, because if you've had like a Windows laptop for years, you know that thing gets slow and slow and slow. The older it gets, the slower it gets. This does the opposite, because nothing is stored on it. There are no programs installed, and there's no hard drive you're storing on. So since everything lives in the cloud, Google optimizes this thing every 6 weeks. A new major version of the operating system comes out. Usually every 2 or 3 days, a minor update comes out, and it just gets applied automatically. We don't have to touch a thing, it just new updates get pushed to it. So over time, it actually gets faster. So when you compare September to June, students might actually say, it seems like it's a little speedier now at the end of the school year, and that's because Google constantly optimizes it. So that's yet another win for Chromebooks as compared to traditional laptops and desktops. So that was a long answer to that. Did that answer your question? All right, so any other questions? Yes? Good question. So the question was for an elementary school parent, since they're not seeing the Chromebooks coming home, how can they find out what's going on with the Chromebooks? This year, in conjunction with our one-to-one rollout, we're also going with Schoology. And Schoology, as I'll show you here, might look familiar to you if you're familiar with Facebook. It actually looks like Facebook too. But unlike Facebook, this has a lot of controls for teachers to use. So our teachers are using, some of them, about 30% of them, have started to use Schoology as kind of a trial test at the end of last year. By the time we get to semester 2 of this year, the midpoint of the year, we're going to have minimum requirements that all teachers have to use maybe just the calendar feature or just the gradebook feature. But as you can imagine, some of them are going to jump in full scale and be posting photos and videos and social media type things to keep parents up to speed on what's going on. So if I were to jump into a course, I don't really have one right now for a classroom, but here's one for beginning of the year that our middle and high school teachers are going to be looking at. So we create folders and we can drop content in those folders. So parents are going to be able to get onto this too and not only just see grades like it has been for our secondary parents in the past, not just a grade, but what does the handout look like? And what are the comments and questions being made about that? And really get a much more holistic view of the kinds of things that students are working on. The parent can just simply look over the student's shoulder or log in as the student. We have no control over that. But there is a feature in Schoology called parent accounts. So this is especially helpful for a parent that has multiple students. They could go to a drop down at the top and say, show me Jason's, show me Sarah's, show me Timmy's, and you can go through and choose your child. And now you get access to see all the things happening in their courses. Or if it's an elementary classroom, in just the 1 or 2 classrooms that they spend their time in. So over time, Schoology is going to be that social media type platform where documents, photos, videos, things like that can be placed there easily by the teacher and by the students. Yes, there's an app also, so a lot of parents like to use the mobile app for Schoology on Android or Apple, but it's fully web-based, so you could get to it from any computer. Yep, when we roll out parent accounts, which is likely either the second half of year 1 or the beginning of year 2 in a multi-year phase-in, we'll have events like this where parents not only are sitting here listening, but you'll have the Chromebooks in front of you, and I'll actually walk you through it step by step, showing you how to go in and see the types of things that teachers are posting. At this point, not every teacher is using it, so it'll be preliminary for me to show you that. But some of you that have elementary students might have seen things like Remind 101, and some teachers using Twitter, some were using Facebook. The problem we ran into is teachers were using a variety of different tools, which was great. We encouraged that communication. But for the parent now, it's, well, that teacher uses that, but then I got to remember that teacher uses that, and it became very hard to follow. So now by having a unified platform of Schoology, all the way pre-K through 12, it becomes the one-stop shop where parents can get an inside look at what's happening within classrooms. And it's protected too, so you won't be able to go in and see some other kids' grades. It shows you only the things tied to your student. Conversations they've had with teachers, grades and assignments, and that type of thing. So it's a great platform. It's like Facebook for schools, but with a lot of controls on there for the educational environment. So other questions? I thought I saw, over here. Very good. So offline access. If you're bringing your Chromebook home and you don't have Wi-Fi at home, all right, that question comes up a lot. These do their best work when they're online, I have to admit. But if you have no Wi-Fi, you can still open this up and start a new document, start a new slideshow, work on an essay you've been working on. You just wouldn't have the collaboration features where that real-time commenting back and forth between fellow classmates, or sending and receiving email. You know, things that require, or video chat or audio chat, things that require a live internet connection you wouldn't be able to do. But it doesn't make this obsolete. It still can be used in an offline mode to be able to continue work or start new work. And then the moment the student reaches Wi-Fi at school, it magically syncs everything back up to the cloud without having to do anything special. It would automatically start sending emails that you wrote and receiving emails that you didn't get. It just takes place automatically when you hit the Wi-Fi. Our 7th grade teacher, Mr. Pete, he was able to have students this year take their Chromebooks home and watch videos that he's created or that he's found online for them to watch, even though they don't have Wi-Fi. And the way he did that was in the settings, I can't really show you because I'm on a different computer here, but you can right-click on a file and say make available offline. And then you wait a minute or two and it will download it to the internal storage. There is internal storage on this. It's the equivalent of a 16 gigabyte flash drive, like one you would pick up in the store for $5. There is one of those built in, so it has limited storage if need be. So in Mr. P's class, some of the students were doing that. They would right-click on it before they left his class and say, make available offline. And 30 seconds later, now that file was sitting on that computer, so they could go anywhere, even on the bus where there's no Wi-Fi, and be able to watch a video. And a lot of our teachers are getting into making their own videos of their instruction. So rather than saying, you know, if you heard the 5-minute lecture in class, you can do your homework tonight, well, maybe I need it again. Or I can pause my teacher or rewind my teacher so that I can write some notes down. That power is becoming in the students' hands. We call that a student-centered classroom. You're working at the pace of the student because they can play, pause, and rewind the instruction, rather than the pace of the teacher, where it's one size, I say it, and hopefully you all have it. You know, that's kind of the shift from an analog world to the digital world. And a lot of our teachers are becoming less camera shy and willing to put themselves on screen, if not just their voice, where you can see and hear the things that they are teaching. So that's a really great thing, and Schoology is our key to make that happen. It's the one-stop shop to get all that content. So we'll have less textbooks too, because that question came up on Monday about the backpacks, and if we can't have backpacks, and now we can add this heavy thing, it's about 3.5 pounds, maybe 3 pounds or so. But the thing is, you got to remember, you're not necessarily going to carry around a math book and an English book and a science book, because that now is accessible from this. So you're actually carrying less around the building compared to before, because now a lot of our resources happen to be digital. So I know that was another long answer to that question there, but we can use these offline. And you can actually store content, as I mentioned, on flash drives and SD cards. And some students have gone home and plugged them into their TV. If you have a TV or a gaming system that has a USB port on it, and now you can watch your content instead of on the 11-inch screen of this, you can watch it on the larger screen that you might have in your house. So there's plenty of options there if you don't have Wi-Fi at your house. And because it has an HDMI out, students have told me they like plugging this thing into their big screen and then using that as a computing screen instead of the 11-inch screen that's on here. So some really great capabilities we have with these Chromebooks. So other questions on Chromebooks? Yes?
Okay, so in the event, not so much graduation, but in the event that student owns, you said that New York State owns the Chromebooks, what happens if students move out of the district or move into another district who has Chromebooks? Do they get reassigned Chromebooks, or do Chromebooks move with them because they're owned by New York State?
No, the Chromebooks are owned by New York State, but they're tied as an asset within our district.
Okay.
So they have to stay within the district.
Because like all of her information, she got hers last year, right? So everything's tied under her OACS email, like in a file. So like, you know what I mean? Like, so everything.
The information.
Here. So under Common Core, everything would be tied under her OACS email.
We have a way to transfer that out.
Like, so that would be my question. If a student transfers no here, where
Yep.
would that be students? Would that any information should be transferred from district to district?
And that's actually the beauty of it. Since that information is not on here, we can just keep the hardware here, but all the information is stored in the cloud. It's stored on Google's servers. So if the student's leaving our domain, they can transfer all their contents to the next school they're going to. And therefore, all that information they've created stays with them. We just have to know, both accounts have to exist, so you could say, take the data from this one and transfer it to that one. We've had that happen also with teachers that have gone to other districts or that have retired and they want to take their information with them. There's free versions and paid versions that allow you to transfer your data. Any other questions? All right, as I mentioned, I've recorded this. I'll put it up on the web, and you have my email address on the back of that form. Feel free to reach out if there's any questions after today or weeks from today that come up. And thank you for coming tonight. Appreciate it.